Redemption is being graciously saved from total depravity. It's being brought home to heaven and being saved from our world.
My definition of redemption is God saving us from our sins and our sinful nature. It relates to the Bible because you can kind of boil the Bible down to Jesus redeeming us from our sins.
I define redemption as God sending His Son down to pay for our sins and showing grace and mercy towards us for taking away the punishment that we deserve.
When I like to think of redemption, I like to think of kind of being in a maze, walking around and not knowing which way to turn, and God just kind of coming in and just grabbing us and putting us back at the start line with a second chance, a restart, just kind of a fresh start.
I would say my definition is that God has redeemed us. He has saved us from His sin by His infinite grace, something that we cannot really even understand. How it relates to the Bible is that every story, every historical account, every song, every psalm, everything in it demonstrates that we are sinners and that we need God's redemption. So it always points back to God.
So when I think of a redemptive story, other than when Jesus came to save us, I think of when He told His people about the lost sheep, and when there was 100 sheep and one strayed from the flock, and He left the 99 to go seek out that one.
A classic story of redemption for me is the binding of Isaac, which is where Abraham goes to sacrifice his son Isaac on the hill, and right as he's about to stab Isaac, God sends an angel to stop him, and then He reveals a ram to him. And that's just kind of shows how even though God tells us to do something and we do it even though we're not sure what the outcome is, God always has a plan for us.
Can you give a biblical example of redemption? I would say my favorite biblical examples of redemption are the ones about people who just absolutely make a mess of things all the time. When I was thinking about this question, the example of King David came up, of how he was just a nobody and then raised up and then had to go through all this nonsense, and especially with things he had to fight battles, and then he wrote psalms, and he was just absolutely amazing, and God redeemed him no matter what happened to him. So even if he messed up with Bathsheba, God used that for His purpose and for His grace and love.
I was thinking of this question, and a biblical example I chose was kind of relevant to chapel, was a girl like Ruth, and Bazar. He was a redeemer for Ruth and her mother-in-law, because he helped carry on their family.
A Bible story that I like to think of for redemption is the story of Zacchaeus, and when Jesus said He was going to go to his house, and when Jesus comes, he realizes all the mistakes he's had, and he repents and realizes all the people that he's done wrong, and becomes a new person just through Christ and through that forgiveness that God offers us.
How does it relate? I feel like they're all connected. God shows grace and mercy when He redeemed us, because He showed grace because He showed mercy because He sent His Son to take our punishment so that we can be with Him, and He shows grace by continuously blessing us and giving us life, and that's how He has redeemed us.
So grace and mercy, I guess, are both things that we don't deserve. We don't deserve to be shown kindness by God, but instead of punishing us, He offers grace and mercy to us. And without those things, we really can't have redemption. We can't be redeemed and saved through Christ without the gift of grace and mercy that we don't deserve.
So grace is when someone gives you something that you don't earn, and mercy is when someone doesn't punish you for something that you should be punished for. So as sinners, we're all doomed to hell, but God shows us incredible grace and mercy by sending Jesus to die on the cross from our sins instead of giving us our eternal punishment now.
Redemption without grace and mercy isn't a redemption of love. When I think of the word, I think love. Jesus isn't saving us because he has to or because he has the ability to. He loves us and he wants for us to live in eternity with him.
Redemption is only possible through accepting God's grace and mercy. I think redemption is an act of mercy, and we don't deserve it, yet God gives us the chance.
I've been redeemed by God. Like, he's constantly in my life, constantly showing me grace, showing me mercy, so that I am able to be close to him. And
I guess I've been redeemed by getting the salvation from God that we don't deserve and having that trust and the gift of being able to be forgiven for my sins and eventually go to heaven, and just accepting the grace and mercy that he has given me.
Obviously, I've been redeemed through Jesus' dying on the cross, but on a more personal note, God has redeemed me throughout my 4 years in high school. I've become closer to him, and I find myself leaning on him and trusting him more than I ever did my freshman and sophomore year.
I believe I have been redeemed because I have fully given my life over to God's grace and to God's mercy. How I fit into God's story, I think, is an interesting question, because I think retrospect is such a huge thing here. I don't really know the big grand picture of God's mercy until I get to heaven, really. I wrote down this Bible verse that says from 1 Corinthians 13, "For now we see only a reflection in a mirror." For those of you who read Lady of Shalott, you know what I'm talking about. "Then we shall see it face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." I love this verse because not only is it stolen by 10 billion different literary references, sorry, English teacher, but it's so hopeful. It's wonderful that I can look at my life now and think, what in the world is going on? But I know that I've only seen in part, and soon I'll see in whole. On another side note, there's this really good book. It's called Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis, and it's about this and Greek literature, and you should definitely read it.